Smoking hot coffee. Smoking hot coffee. Smoking hot coffee.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amol Patel. You're watching another episode of the Smoking Hot Coffee Show. This is cup number 34, not 33. This is an internet startup show where we talk about internet startups, design, monetization, and marketing. I'm joined with...
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pelton, and I'm joining you from down here in San Diego. It's March 13th.
Yeah, it's a nice sunny day here in Los Angeles. I'm assuming same thing in San Diego, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit gray out there, but the sun is shining. Can't complain.
No gray here, man. It is a beautiful day. All right, so let's get into it, Jeff. First up is the news. You wanted to cover this. What's this all about, Jeff?
Well, this isn't the news. This is a rage tweet, right?
Oh, sorry, rage tweet.
So yeah, just somebody tweeted at our buddy Andrew over here tweeted at us at Smoking Hot Coffee. Why does the ATM machine ask if I want a receipt every transaction? This should be an account setting. I have to totally agree. So I have a soft spot in my heart for product usability, right? Like this is a great example of like a non-internet, like real world human interface with devices. This just reminds me of recently I was at like a concert at like an arena, and I had to go get some cash from the ATM. Like a lot of people, I think, half the place is cash only or something.
Right.
And turns out there's like a stack of receipts sitting on top of the ATM.
Oh,
like,
wow.
No joke. I'm just sitting there blowing a little time. Like, oh man, I'm just like looking at people's account balances.
Yeah.
And thought it was pretty interesting that's where we are today. That people just don't care. Just leave, they walk away before the receipt even prints, probably.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have this
what's
pile
happening.
of them sitting there.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And well, I mean, don't you think it's a little bit ridiculous that we're still killing trees and for such a purpose?
Well, yes, I agree. It's annoying. We should be able to set this, but the ATM industry, or the way the industry has evolved, is there's the major players. You've got the big national players like the B of A's and the Citibanks and what have you, and they own their own ATM machines and they have their own locations. Then you have a lot of these sort of smaller operators that will go into the stadiums, that'll go into the convenience stores,
Sure.
and we've got these sort of non-branded, ATM thing. And I've
Yep.
noticed any of those non-branded ATM machines that'll gouge you with the $3 fees or $5 fees. Yeah, those guys always print out a receipt. Or for the most part, they never ask. They just automatically print.
Good point.
And
Yeah.
I think I think a couple of companies control that market, and I think they just kind of this is their setting, and there's no way to getting around it. They're an
Sure,
independent
but okay,
company.
let's forget all those little guys, though. What about your bank, right? Like, I mean, I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
for the most point, like at least
Yeah,
around town here, I try to swing by my bank where I'm not paying the fee.
Yeah.
And it seems like it would be so easy for it to be a preference.
Absolutely.
Where you get the best of both worlds.
Right.
You could have the preference to always print, or always ask, or never ask, or email me, or something a little bit more
that's
responsible than printing receipts.
For your own bank. For electronic banking, absolutely. I hate talking to humans when I go to a bank. I just try to avoid them as much as possible. I just want to get my business taken care of, and these machines are perfect for that. I completely
anytime
agree.
you pull cash out or put, a check in or cash in, they print a receipt, and you don't always need it. Or, they just waste your time by asking the question when it's like, no, 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 ever.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And I also think that now that we're all using smartphones and all these big banks are pushing their smartphone apps, it'd be great if there was some sort of near-field communication, some sort of, the code or whatever, that I can actually do the stuff in the car. And all I have to do is get out and actually point my phone to a camera, and then it'll authenticate. And maybe, I don't know, there's probably a whole bunch of other issues. Maybe
Seems like you don't even need to be there at that point. And,
well, you do need the cash, right? Sometimes you need the
Okay.
cash, right? So you need to get the cash out. But it'd be great. I can do all the transactional information on my phone, and then
good point.
literally
Just walk up and pull it out.
exactly walk it up,
Like
and
it just
it'll
unlocks for you, basically.
exactly. Yeah. And I'm hoping that'll eventually happen. I know there's some security issues with that, of course, and all that. But that'd be an interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, thanks Conk15 on Twitter, Andrew Hopkins, for pulling this story out for us. I definitely love studying the usability changes in my ATM. I think just like over time, I've watched like the software updates, like one of the huge changes they've done is now when I put the card in, it immediately spits it back out, and then I put in my PIN
Yeah,
number.
yeah,
And
I've noticed
it
that. Yes.
used to, at least
Yeah.
with Bank of
Used to hold
America,
on to
they
it.
used to
Yeah.
eat the card
Yeah, yeah.
for the whole transaction. You
Mhm.
end the transaction, it gives you the card back.
Right.
Problem is, people were leaving them in the machines, and
Right.
it would eat them. I think where it would like retain. Anyways, it's interesting to see how they are, changing that user experience that we
Al-
all use quite often.
Although I have to say, Jeff, there's some slight changes, but overall it hasn't changed that much over the years. So I'm looking forward to further integration with our smartphones. So with
Well, dude, you can take a photo of your checks and
yeah, yeah,
deposit them
we
from home. So I
yeah.
mean, it's just obliviating the need for an ATM.
Yeah, yeah. For the depositing of checks, yeah, but we still need to figure out a way to get the cash out. So,
Right.
with that, I think we'll move on to our next story. This is basically just an update to our Hackers Paradise segment. There's our graphic. Yay! I'm gonna have some sound eventually to this. So this just happened today. It's been all over the news. Google finally admitted that yes, indeed, they had violated privacy. They had went ahead and this rogue, engineer slash hacker went ahead and under nobody's supervision apparently had went ahead and grabbed all this data, and yes, they do have the data banks now. As a way of settling, they've decided to put together the courts have made them, what is it? They have to run, here we go.
Seven.
They basically have to run an educational campaign in the biggest newspapers in 38 participating states, including California, on how to protect your privacy, which is great because there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing when it comes to setting up their wireless networks. And they have to they have to create a YouTube video, and I'm sure they've got YouTube has their own internal advertising system along with Google. Maybe they have to actually give ad credits to present this to people even online. So I think that's really great. They have to have an annual privacy event for their employees. So if they have a group that's in charge of Gmail, and if they sometimes once in a while want to check up on this chick's da 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 emails, and they can't do any of that shit. They've got to keep the stuff as buttoned down as possible. I don't know who's watching them. I have no idea
Right.
where the oversight is on this.
Exactly. What's the point?
I have zero idea who's the oversight, Jeff. Who is making sure that people aren't going into my Gdocs, in my Gmail, into my Yahoo, into my search history? Who's watching them, Jeff? I don't know. I don't think there's anybody watching them. We're just hoping that.
Well, so this is a follow-up. We talked about the beginning of this story, which is Google is paying out $7 million apparently is all.
Well, they were
For-
fined 22.5 for this, which is a drop in the bucket. That's nothing. $22 million
well,
is nothing for
that's
Google.
for something different. That's just for bypassing the privacy settings in Safari.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think the war driving thing is $7 million, which
Yeah.
is from
Dude, that's a
past
drop in the
years.
bucket for these guys. They make $7 million.
Absolutely. The type, people should be concerned about just, the behavior that's going on. They have a distributed network across the nation of these cars driving around,
Right.
and they decided they could just start scanning, for all sorts of stuff. And, maybe that's their right to do. Maybe as consumers, we need to be smarter about what we're doing, but it's good for us to know that they're doing that.
Right.
And that they could be scanning for other things, than just Wi-Fi networks.
It is pretty
I mean,
interesting
they're
that
certainly taking photos and doing all sorts of, I'm sure they're trying to get 3D renders of the building faces.
yeah,
So,
who knows?
I'm sure they're doing a lot more than just
Yeah.
taking pictures.
Oh, trust me, they're doing 3D scanning. They're scanning the
Exactly.
actual structures. I bet you
Right.
they're capturing 3D data. Absolutely. If I was them, I'd be doing that.
So there's people, I think, speculating they're looking at more than just the Wi-Fi spectrum of
Yeah.
radio, right?
So-
There's other radio spectrum they
So
might be. poking at.
and don't get me wrong, I love Google Maps. I think it's awesome. I'm so glad that Google exists to create all this local mapping data. The Street View is incredible, but yes, somebody needs to protect us from rogue engineers. And here's what this guy Stefan, one of the regulators, said. They said it's probably the single greatest breach in history of privacy. Apparently, they initially denied any data had been collected from unknowing individuals, and then they sought to play down whatever data was collected, and they fought with regulators who wanted to examine it. So here again is who is watching the watchers. If the regulators are trying to get in there and at least trying to figure out what the hell's going on, Google's fighting these guys, right?
Hold on one second. Let's just take a step back, though. Think about it. The regulators are the ones that are also requesting our data from Google.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just making sure that they have access to it.
Yeah,
They
that
really,
too.
it's
Yeah.
really just a campaign, I think, to make sure that this story is like, maintained because, yeah, I mean, who's watching the watchers? Those are the guys that are logging into your
So,
Google
so, so
account.
I love the fact that toward the end of this New York Times article, they do mention that $7 million fine is pocket change for Google. They net 32 million a day. Seven
Right.
million a day is fucking nothing. These guys should have been hit with several hundred million, and then you can
Sure.
bet your sweet ass that they're going to have multiple oversight committees, multiple campaigns making sure nobody breaches privacy, because that's a lot of money. The best way corporations remember things is through these big levies. That's the best way to handle it. It worked with works for the oil companies, and I think now it's gonna for large companies like Google, unfortunately, they're gonna need to be hitting the wallet. All right, so that I think that's enough for that. Us go on to our
Yeah,
first
it's a
startup.
big complex story that I'm sure we're going to continue to cover in the future.
All right, so first up is Zapier. Now, I ran across this. I don't remember how, but I thought it was a really cool idea. It's one of the really more interesting startups I've seen in a long time. Automate your work. Zapier.com works with
Interesting.
181 web services and counting. So we've
Wow.
got basically a graphic full of a bunch of favicons, a bunch of different startups, and so what I liked about it was that it allowed a normal, tech-savvy consumer to be able to connect different services by creating simple rules. If somebody signs up on my Wufoo forums, I want that information to go to Salesforce, and they have an image here showing exactly that. Oh, I clicked on it, and that's asked me to sign up. But there's some very common use cases that
Yeah.
you're always needing to get done. And here's Andrew Warner, and he's saying I was going to pay
Right.
$1,000 to a developer to make two services work together, and then he used Zapier. And now Zapier handles that. So. Same here, here's a guy from Balsamic saying that he has the pivotal tracker stories and he wants to connect that with RSS feeds or email receipts. So this is a common problem. Lots of these web services exist. How do you get one thing to talk to the other?
Yep, it's sort of the whole the phase of the internet we're in, I think, is very strongly focused on RESTful APIs and web services.
Yeah.
You look at you get into a big corporation, and I think Amazon has taught us this from very early on, or maybe like created the idea of software as a service to segmenting things as services, and the whole point of it is so that they can be interchangeable and talk to each other
Right.
in a way that makes sense to humans and also mainly to machines,
Right.
so that you can have these sorts of connections. And it's sort of the very difficult problem, but also nirvana when you get there,
Right.
I think. And so I
But
always try
Jeff,
to bring up the competitor.
unfortunately these APIs are not parsable by normal human beings, right?
It's tough. I mean, I think that's the point of RESTful.
Well,
If
I
you
know,
look at the old APIs like
but Jeff,
WSDLs and
but
stuff.
but no, but the guy working in his office that just needs to get the emails connected to his Evernote or whatever, he doesn't want to hire a developer to do this simple task. This is perfect. Now, look at these great use cases. Save Gmail
well,
emails.
So let's mention real quick. There's another leader in this space, I think, right? A competitor called If Then Then That.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So they've been really popular, hugely focused on the simplicity of what they're doing, like these big beautiful icons to kind of visually demonstrate that you're tying APIs together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Via,
So
via triggers usually.
and so that's I think a lot of times this I kind of struggle with what stuff to cover in our show because I really want to make sure it's compatible with a lot of people, not just for geeky guys. And in my opinion, I think this is one of them. This is another area where not just your geeky dude or some guy in IT, but just a normal schmo that's working in an office needs to connect two different services together. When
Yeah, of
they
course.
happen to be applications on your desktop computer, it was a little bit easier because you hit export and then import and all that kind of thing. .csv sometimes. But now that we live in the web services world, this is a whole other market. What would you even call this, Jeff? Would you call it just cloud services connections market? How would you even describe this segment?
This segment.
Yeah,
I
because,
mean,
because I
we've
think this is a
seen-
vertical to itself. This whole collaborative web apps, like different, like intercommunications between web apps. I think this is a segment, in my opinion.
Okay, so where does this go back to? Like, do we begin with like Yahoo Pipes?
Maybe, yeah.
Yahoo
Yahoo Pipes was probably
I
the
think,
first.
was
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
first big dominant
Yeah.
player in this space. And again, it's a very technical, very dry, difficult problem to solve.
Yeah.
And so that's why the elegance and the user interface here is important.
Absolutely.
I do think though, yeah, they're talking about the business model and sort of the logistics behind it of connecting these, you're working with all these third-party services is
Right.
what the difficulty is.
So let's
Hopefully they have a REST interface that's like compatible or,
So let me can I just briefly go over the user interface for this thing? I really dug the user interface. So they've got a basically a meter. So we're at number one here, our the sequence rather, and then you pick your trigger and action. So on the left you've got the trigger, and then on the right you've got the action. So when this happens, do this. And they kept it pretty simple. I mean, it's very very minimal. There's not a lot of stuff everywhere. There's a big get help thing on the right, and then you could select the account and you connect it, and supposedly it all works. Now I remember I have a lot of my data in iCalendar, and I was just trying to get everything from iCalendar or from iCal type format into Gmail or GCal, and it was just such a pain in the ass to get the stuff to work together. And so this kind of stuff it's
So
helps.
did you use this for that?
I did
Or-
not use this. I ended up using something else. I did a whole bunch of Google searching to figure it out. But
Yeah, so if in my personal, it doesn't seem like that would be suitable here. This is more targeted at dynamic, real-time, triggered events. This isn't the export-import type thing. This
Yeah.
is more like,
yeah, but
when someone puts a file in my Dropbox, send me an email and notify people, and then back it up to Facebook if it's a photo, and
right.
it's more of a triggered
No,
systems talking to each other.
and the thing is iCalendar has an RSS reader, so you can you can subscribe to events. So there is triggers there. So every month or every time I open it up, there's a whole bunch of new events that have been pulled in or whatever. So that's one way I was, but now it's working. I figured out a way. There's an actual web service for this very specific issue.
So my review of this is I find it interesting, but the stickiness is where it's at, right? Like I think people are either gonna use this and never be able to go away from it. They'll just be stuck using it forever because it's so useful to their workflow. But personally, for me, I'm like still looking for the use case that would make sense for me. And I always have I have a natural aversion to kind of relying on these sorts of tools. But I'm sure that it just really, like you said, you can, it gets rid of the need for a developer probably. If you can just,
yeah. So you being
set up a pipe.
you being a developer, you're probably like, one more reason where we're going to get automated. No,
No, I mean, when you mention that, I mean, that's the point, right? This tool should get rid of the need of a programmer going and saying, oh, what is the latest in the Facebook API and
Exactly.
the Gmail API, and then connecting those two things when in reality there's hundreds of these services.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there's a lot of use cases. I think this is great. I went ahead and rated it since we need to move on, Jeff.
Sure.
I gave it a 4 for design. I think it's beautifully designed. Originality, a 3. I don't think I've ever seen a lot of new stuff like this. Survival, I give it a 3, and marketing, a 3. Simply because they have gotten some great, good testimonials in the front, and they're signed into a lot of web services. It'd be really interesting if they can find a way for the web services to help promote Zapier as part of maybe these guys get questions, and if they can set up a biz dev relationship, I can totally see these guys doing really great.
So something in that you mentioned making APIs human readable. There are a bunch of startups doing like API documentation and web interfaces to make the APIs more, usable for developers and easier to use and test and do all this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So
All right,
there's a lot
that's
of
good.
cool stuff in that space.
All right, great. So let's move on. Next up is something, but it's not loading. We're having some issues with jQuery. I know.
I think
Jeff.
you've got it in your other tab there, right?
I do. Yeah.
I've got a
Yeah,
couple
here we
bugs I got to clean up on our homepage. I upgraded jQuery and got to give them guff. I think there might be some changes I wasn't ready for.
Okay, so here we are at document.ly. And this is a really beautifully designed site, real-time wiki, nice big headline, work on projects together in real time. Sign up or sign in with Google. Okay, so we've got call to action. Looks like we've got some sort of little a tool. We've got a little, sort of like a typography. What is this? This looks like a tiny MC. Yeah, so we've got a little toolbar so I can actually write articles, and there's a whole bunch of Typography written here, headline, first, second, third. And then
Well,
underneath,
I don't know if you're familiar with Markdown, but it's really popular with programmers and the developer internet community, GitHub and those types. It's you can see the Markdown code on the right
I
and
do,
the
yeah.
formatting on the left.
Okay, that's
So
what's
it's a
going
way
on
that
here. Okay.
kind of like Wikipedia or other wikis
Okay.
have I forget what you call it, but basically in plain text you're formatting it with bold and headers and stuff like
I
that,
see.
just
I
with
see. So instead of using
hashes
HTML
and stuff.
tags, we use like something a little bit easier to understand, probably.
Right.
Okay, got you. All right. So looks like I can kind of create articles using this platform. It's a collaborative knowledge management tool for teams of any size. All right. Safe and secure, intuitive and fast. Sign up and create collaborators. Access from any device. Store files. Drag and drop. Track your documents, and tons of document workflow features, creating multiple copies, automatically stores revisions, notifies members important changes. Okay, Jeff. So, all right, I get that this is it's a way for a group of people to put together documentation, perhaps, or knowledge management, whatever that means. Isn't that just documentation? Is it just a fancy word for documentation, Jeff?
What
Knowledge
word?
management.
Knowledge management?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess documentation. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, there's so many use cases for it, right? I think they're just focusing on making it easy to use, and I think your mind can go wild with the ways that your team or group of collaborators can use it. I think the wiki is still surprisingly like not reached corporate America or businesses. I think we have tools like Google Drive and Docs that have collaborative docs that kids are using in college and stuff now. But
Right.
this sort of collaborative documentation is just the way to go, right? A
Absolutely.
wiki tracks history of changes, and so
Mhm.
you really just dive in and get stuff done, and you're all like refining and working towards one point.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do you think of this product? It seems really clean, elegant, and simple. Doesn't seem like it tries to do more than it says. It's just a wiki,
Yeah, yeah,
real
it's
time.
very clean, it's very minimal. I'm not sure how they make money. I'm looking for like some form of like payment.
Yeah, good question. You
I'm
might be a little
also
bit
not
scared
seeing
to put your project on there.
I'm not seeing. So it'd be great if they broke this thing down in a knowledge management tool, like they had some examples. I can now I know I can sign in, sign up, but I'd like to play with it. I'd love an area where I can like play with it, but apparently I got to log in to play with it, so I don't
Yeah, I
like
just
that.
signed in with Google. It's real easy to join, and
Okay,
it works just like it shows there.
gotcha.
Um, yeah, I mean they're a really broad product, a really great looking tool. They might want to start taking on some verticals, right? Like really explaining to some people how they could
Yeah,
use
that's
this.
a great idea, Jeff. So if these guys went ahead and attacked the construction vertical, let's say, or they want to attack the lawyer vertical or whatever these verticals are.
And and the way they have this set up, they could do both, right? They could, keep this as just like the clean, plain tool, but then they could create, kind of like how DuckDuckGo will create like a whole .com just to say,
Hmm.
one message about we don't
Right,
track you.
right. And
These
they could have a
guys could
subdomain,
say,
right? The subdomain could be
just a whole nother like, landing page just for, use this tool for your, your neighborhood, whatever
so what if they did like lawoffice dot
office.
document dot ly, right? And
Yeah.
they could just have a subdomain explaining the vertical or whatever. Yeah, I'd like
And
to
they
see
don't need
some.
to customize the tool. They just need to show you why it would be great for that use
I
case.
completely agree. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and give it the ratings if I can get to it. Oops, that's not it. Here we go. Design. I give it a. Ooh, I give it a 3. I think I would like to see more. Maybe that's. Yeah, I think I give it a 3. Originality.
My ratings aren't popping up, but I gave it a 4 for design. I thought it's pretty crisp and clean. The originality, a 3. We've seen stuff like this before, but clearly a useful tool that not everyone's making use of yet. Survival 3, marketing 3. I hope they can, make a dent, and like you said, they need to show pricing, right?
Yeah. And how much? Okay, so yeah, there's no pricing, so I don't know how long they're gonna live for free. It looks like this one developer probably busted it out, and he's just gonna let us sit and see if see if it gains any traction. And if it does gain traction, then maybe then he could say, hey, Our server costs are a lot of money. Send out the emails to their top 100 users. Here's a flatter. Donate or something, right?
Yeah.
So who knows how much resources this takes? I mean, imagine it would take a lot of resources if he starts serving up images, right? Text is probably not that much in terms of server resources, but
Yeah, text you could probably get away with. I think it looked like he was on App Engine, maybe.
okay.
I'm not sure what the site's built with, so they're probably on like might be on the Google Cloud. Being signing in with Google, I'm feeling like there might even be a way to use Google to store the documents.
Yeah, probably maybe
using
they are.
their drive or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, they're probably using that as well. Maybe, you never know. But, anyways, all right. So that does it for our show today. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions or suggestions or any tips and tricks for us, please send them our way, and tell your friends, your dog, your cat, and everybody to watch the Smoking Hot Coffee Show. Jeff?
Yeah, we would love your rage tweets. Anything that you guys want to let us know that we should cover, we would love to do that. And please subscribe through all of our channels. Check out the website, smokingHotCoffee.com, where you can find the links to subscribe.
All right. I'll catch you next time.
All right, see you.